Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we're going to go over the super function in Python. So the super function allows a class to access a parent class method. And if you're not familiar with what a parent class is or inheritance, I definitely recommend you check out my previous video in this tutorial series before proceeding with this video. Alright, so the super function allows a class to access a parent class method and returns a proxy instance of a parent class. And the reason why this function is called super is because a parent class is also referred to as a superclass. So these are synonyms. So in the previous video, we implemented these classes. So we have a parent class, which is a game character. And in the constructor, we have health and weapon, and we have an attack method. In this case, a game character would attack with a punch, and we have our child classes. So we have warrior, mage, and archer, and each one inherits from the game character class. And we also override the attack method. So instead of using the attack method defined here, we create our own for each class. And then over here, we create an instance of each class type. So we have warrior, mage, and archer, and then we put them in a list. So that is our team of characters. And then we iterate through each member of the team, and we call the attack method. So if I save and run the program, you can see the warrior slashed with a sword, our mage used a fire spell, and the archer shot an arrow. So for our three character classes, we have our own attack method, but each one can also access the game character attack method over here. And why would we want to do so? Well, it wouldn't make sense for a warrior to slash with a sword if the weapon is none. If there is no sword, you cannot slash. And the same applies for the magician and the archer. So you can't use a fire spell if you don't have a staff, and you can't shoot an arrow if you don't have a bow. So over here we can add a check. If self.weapon is none, I'm going to just copy and paste this over here. And then else, and let's just copy and paste this over here. And then for the archer as well. Now let's save and run the program. And you can see each team member attacked with a punch. And that is because in our constructor, we set self.weapon to none. Now there's an issue, and that is we are copying and pasting code. So we have duplicate code. And technically we just have a print statement, so it's not a big deal. But if our attack method had more code in it, then we would be copying that chunk of code multiple times. So instead of doing it this way, we can use the super function to call the parent class's attack method. So instead of doing this, I can do super.attack. So the super function returns a temporary proxy object of the parent class, which is game character, and then we can use that to call the method. So let me copy and paste this and replace this one and this one over here. Now if I save and run the program, you can see each team member attacked with a punch, and we're doing this by calling the parent class's attack method. Alright, so that's how you can use the super function to call a method. Now let's give our warrior, mage, and archer some weapons. So in my for loop, I'm just going to print member.health and member.weapon. So if I save and run the program, you can see for each one we have 100 for the health and none for the weapon. So just like with the attack method, we can override the constructor of our parent class. So over here I can do init self, and I can just do self.weapon sword. And I can do the same for the mage and archer. So let me copy this, paste it over here, and change this to staff. And then do the same for the archer, and change this one to bow. So now when we create our warrior, mage, and archer, we have a weapon for each character. So if I save and run the program now, let's see what happens. And you can see we get an error from our print statement. Warrior object has no attribute health. So the error came from this line, and it's saying our team member has no health attribute. But clearly we have the health attribute defined here in the game character constructor. But the issue is we redefined the constructor for our child classes. So just like how we override the attack method, we override the constructor. And only in the game character constructor do we have a health attribute. So basically, when we create warrior, we used to call this constructor. Now we call this one over here. Now I could just copy and paste this into our three classes, but that would be redundant. That would be duplicating code. And if I add more attributes, such as level, experience, power, magic, defense, and so on, I would have to copy that chunk of code multiple times for each child class. So instead, what I can do is call the parent class constructor within our child class constructor. So to do that, I would just do super dot double underscore init. So what this does is call the constructor from the parent class and then call this line. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and then for our archer as well. And then now, if I save and run the program, you can see each character has a weapon. So we get 100 for health and sword for the warrior, and the warrior slashed with a sword. And we get the same thing for the mage and for the archer. Now, what happens if I take this and move it here? So before I had the constructor called before this line, and now I flipped it. If I save and run the program, you can see we get 100 and none, and the warrior attacked with a punch. And the reason is, we assign self.weapon to sword, and then afterwards we call the constructor of the parent class, which then executes these two lines. So it's basically doing this. So we are overriding the value sword with none. So make sure the ordering is correct, since the order does matter. Typically, we call the constructor of the parent class first before writing any code within our constructor. Alternatively, another thing we can do is redefine this constructor by adding a parameter. In this case, I can make the default parameter for weapon none. And then here, I can just do weapon. So if I get rid of this, and I save and run the program, you can see for the warrior, mage, and archer, the weapon is none. And now what I can do is, I can call the constructor of the parent class and pass in this parameter. So here I can do sword, and over here I can do staff, and then for the archer I can do bow. And now if I save and run the program, you can see the warrior has a sword and slashed with a sword, mage has a staff, used a fire spell, and the archer has a bow and shot an arrow. Alright, so that's how you can use the super function to access the methods of a parent class within the child classes. So that's all for this video. If you found the video helpful, make sure you give this video a like. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And if you want to stay up to date for more Python tutorials like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.